Well, I'm Rachel, by the way.
Oh, hello.
Good to meet
I'm
you.
Otep. Nice to meet you. Oh,
I've
nice.
actually interviewed the World Over once when they
Oh,
were
cool.
here. They
Yeah.
had a
Great band.
headlining
Great
tour
band.
here, and they played a show here.
Really great band. We love. I think this is the 4th time we've had them out with us.
They're great.
Yeah, they're. You know, I like to tour with bands that are in it for the right reasons. You know,
Yeah.
they, especially when they're female fronted, they're not up there using their bodies, and they're up there using their talents.
Yada is amazing.
She's
a powerhouse.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted her. And you know, it's also nice to have you know, someone else who's in the LGBT community on tour with us as well. And but the whole band is just, they're gifted and talented, and they're in it for the right reasons. They work hard every night. They're always in great spirits, and that's really what you want from a direct support, is gratitude. And you know, we treat them. You know, we've been direct support before, so we try to treat everybody with the kind of respect we wanted when we were direct support, which we didn't get. You know, so but yeah, we specifically asked if they wanted to come and tour on this one for us, because we really wanted to have them out with us again.
Well, I know DeCambrio is a local band. They're opening tonight too.
Oh, right on.
They're very LGBT friendly too.
Excellent.
Like I think it's the
Hey, so
perfect
you guys got a
lineup.
great local scene here,
Yeah.
and we've had some really wonderful experiences on this tour with great local scenes, great local bands, and it's really nice to see. And you know, I've talked to a few of the local bands, and you know, they always ask for advice, you know, and and the advice that I give them is, you know, rehearsal is a show. You know, you go in and you rehearse like it's a show. It's not a jam, you know, unless that's what you're into. Unless you just want it to be a hobby. If you're really serious about making it in this business, then rehearsals are, you walk in like you're playing a show, and you give it everything you got. And then when you're on stage, you do the same thing. No matter if there's 5 people in front of you, 10 people in front of you, 50, whatever, you give it everything you got. And sometimes, you know, you'll, and this happens even with me. You know, I'll get a sort of either a comatose crowd who are really great in between songs but don't really do much. They just kind of look at us in awe. Or they're just, you know, they're filming or whatever, and or they've been drinking all night, so they're just not in the same space that we are, because we don't drink or anything, you know. We're more gym rats, you know. He and I go to the gym every day and before shows. But what I tell local bands is, I say, even in your mind, if you're thinking like, fuck these people, you know, they're not paying us any attention, they're not giving us any respect, fuck them. You can think that, but don't say that.
Of course, yeah.
Say, you guys are the best audience I've ever played for. Thanks for coming out, because then they'll start paying attention. You know, they'll start thinking like, oh shit, I should pay attention to this band. They're respectful. They appreciate us being here, and it's not exploiting or tricking the audience. It's just about engaging with them in a way that makes them want to pay attention to you, and that's the way you build your fan base. And then you know, make sure you got all your social medias up, not just Facebook. Everybody. There's a mass exodus happening on Facebook right now.
Sucks. I mean,
it's so dead.
I do photography. I have a photography business, and it's the same way.
Yeah.
It's just,
well, you know, when my father's on Facebook, that's when you know it's done, because my dad's not a technical guy at all.
Right.
You know, I mean, he's in his garage. He's building. You know, he's rebuilding old cars, restoring old cars and stuff like that. But when he gets on Facebook, you know, it's like it's time to go. Plus, you know, what happened with the 2016 election, and Zuckerberg selling all the data to the Russians and allowing Russians to buy ad space on Facebook and made it look like news against Hillary Clinton. And so that, I think, caused a lot. It turned a lot of people off. So I use Facebook just for the band and help promote the band. But personally, I use mostly politically. I'm on Twitter. That's the easiest ways to engage. That's where Cheeto Schittler is anyway all the time. He's always on Twitter, so I get to engage with him a lot, and a lot of his idiot supporters. And then Instagram is probably my favorite right now, just because it's easy. Videos are good. It's, you know, you can, yeah, it's a great program, and you can actually give people the experiences, you know, right there. Like what, you know, like on tour, we'll show behind the scenes stuff. You know, you know, we can show them where we are, where we've been, and what we're doing, and it's a lot of fun. So, and also we get tagged in a lot of photos that people take while we're playing, and you never that I've never seen before. So that's always cool too, you know, to see. So, and it's really kind of hard to do that. Plus, the interface is better when you're trying to interact with fans.
Well, I know you've done a lot of charity work. Like, do you have anything in the works right now that you're doing, or just kind of talk about what you've done and what maybe is happening in the future?
Well, I believe that it's my duty as a citizen to pay back the world for allowing me to live here by being active in my communities and be active in the things that I care about and the things that I think are important. So, of course, I do a lot of advocacy against bullying. I do a lot of advocacy for survivors of domestic violence and molestation and rape and so forth. Also, a lot of advocacy for the LGBTQ community, animal rights. I'm a vegan. I'm a moral vegan. I'm a vegan for the animals. I became vegan not because I didn't like the taste of meat. It was because of the way they treat the animals, the way that they murder them, the way that it's fiendish. It's just horrible. And it's like the last bastion of where true bullies can exist, because they can just do whatever they want to those animals. Nobody's watching unless someone goes in undercover, which I advocate with a lot of those organizations that do. They send undercover people inside, and they document what goes on in those places, and it's tough. It's real tough. So right now we have in the LGBT community, we have a real crisis going on with Cheeto Schittler and his. Now he's going after the LGBTQ community, which is a big mistake, because we get shit done. That's what we do. We get shit done. When California outlawed Proposition 8, which allowed for marriage equality in California, the gay community came together and we overturned that. We got that overturned. We also got DOMA overturned. We got Don't Ask, Don't Tell overturned. We did all of that, along with our heterosexual allies. I'm not taking anything away from those folks. In fact, sometimes it's even more important when you have our heterosexual allies stand up for us, because it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't affect them, the laws and everything. Right. It does. But right now, Trump's trying to put a ban on trans folks entering the military. One of the in response to that, one of the men who was in SEAL Team 6, which is of course who killed Osama bin Laden, when he retired, he came out as trans. And so I think he challenged Trump to do anything that physically that Trump wanted to do, and the guy would do it in heels, or she would do it in heels. Sorry, wrong pronoun. But and now Trump is cutting off funding for AIDS research, when we're on the cusp of finding maybe not a cure, but preventative measures, vaccines and so forth. And so I'm not sure why I know why Mike Pence is extremely homophobic. I mean, he wanted to do, when he was governor of Indiana, he tried to do conversion therapy clinics, where if you thought your child was gay, because say your son was playing with his sister's Barbie doll or something, you could take your child to this clinic and they would electroshock it. They would put these little things on their head.
Stuff always
Just recently this just happened, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I think it's on Facebook as well. This little kid, he was 10 years old, this little boy, he told his parents that he thought he was bisexual, and they tortured him and they beat him to death for that. And how you can torture and beat your own 10-year-old son just because he thinks he likes boys and girls, and then you get these idiots. I don't understand that kind of hideousness. I don't understand that kind of hatred. I don't. But I've devoted myself to fighting it. But a lot of people come back with one guy told me that parents are coaching their kids to be gay. I've never heard that before in my life. That's like the dumbest thing anybody's ever said. Nobody coaches anybody to be anything like that, especially when they're young. You're not saying, hey, you're going to be gay one day because you want to face discrimination and bigotry and possible death and all those things. Be gay, kid. That's not how it happens. A lot of people say, at 10, how did he know he was attracted to? Who was he attracted to? Well, I knew I was attracted to girls at 6 years old. I didn't know what gay was. I just knew that I had a different response to girls than I did with boys. With boys, I wanted to play football and I wanted to hang out and have good friends and all that stuff. I saw a girl, I wanted to hold her hand and, you know, be nice to her. I think, you know, movie stars and stuff. You know, the superheroes and all the
celebrity crushes.
Yeah. I mean, look, I got hetero crushes right now. You know, I like that dude. What's that dude's name that plays Thor?
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, I like that dude.
I think everybody loves
him. I mean, geez, that dude is. I mean,
it's just like Jason Momoa. Everyone
oh my God, him too. He's a hetero crush for me. The difference is like even like my guitar player here, Aristotle, who's over there. He's a beautiful human being, physically beautiful, internally beautiful, mentally beautiful. He's an artist, not only on music, but he's a painter. He's just like Da Vinci.
He's soaking it up over here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but he's a technical whiz. I mean, he's a genius, literally a genius, this kid. And I look at him and I can say, that is a beautiful, beautiful man. You know, and I can look at like Brad Pitt and say, oh, that's a beautiful man. I can look at Sean Penn. I actually got to go to his assistant's birthday party. Sean Penn had it at his house, and I got to meet Sean Penn, and I hung out with him, and we got to talk politics and everything, and I was like, whoa, hetero crush right here. Now the difference is, I admire he's a good looking man. He's built. I mean, he's really built. Sean Penn, smart as a fucking whip. Really political. He's fair in his politics. He's not. He looks at what's wrong on both sides. The difference is, I just don't want him to mount me.
Right. Now,
if I see the actress that plays Wonder Woman, that's a whole other thing that happens inside me, you know. So that's I've known since I was 6. People develop differently, you know. So I ask people, and then they say it's a choice, right? People always say that's a choice. Like I say, then you're straight, right? Yes. When did you choose to be straight?
I was just about to say, like, when did you discover that you're straight? Like,
exactly. Well, if they say choose, then if you follow that the fallacy of that logic, that means that you could also choose to be gay. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're only choosing to be straight right now, but if circumstances required, you could choose to be gay. And this guy, I had this argument with this guy. So you could lay with a man if you chose to. And if you have that choice, that means you're bisexual. That's what that means. There's no choice. You know, I was born with freckles, green eyes, blonde hair, being a badass. Can't do nothing about that. I was also born gay. That's just the way it is. It's been that way since the beginning of time. You can go back and look at fossil records on all that. The kid who was murdered by his own parents, tortured and murdered, blunt force trauma to his head and his body, they think with a shovel. At 10 years old. That's what's important. Not whether or not he found one boy cute and another boy cute. And the same people that talk about that, like they say, well, how does he know that he's bisexual, or how do people know that they're gay at that age? Never say peep, not one fucking word. When a little girl, their little heterosexual girl comes home and says, oh, I think this little boy's cute at school, or I want a boyfriend, or whatever. No, they say peep about that. They don't say nothing about that. There's nothing wrong with that to them. So what they're saying is basically they're saying that if a child discovers their sexuality early and it's not heterosexual, then that's abnormal. And that's unacceptable. And it's unacceptable. There was another little boy that did the same thing. And as a person who is out and loud and proud and always is begging people to come out of the closet, you know, like Harvey Milk said, break down those closet doors. Once they know us, they can't hate us. There was another little boy who was around 9 years old, I think, who came out, said he was gay, was bullied so badly at his school, which I blame the school and I blame the teachers. He killed himself.
I heard about
9 years old. And the same arguments. How did he know? And it's like, you guys are missing the fucking point. It's not about how and when he knows. No, it's about what they did to him.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I've let these children down, because here I am speaking about it and inviting them to live their authentic selves, and yet they're still being bullied and they're still being beaten and murdered by their own parents. A lot of people said that the parents deserve to be shot, killed, tied up by each limb by 4 different horses, and each horse goes in a different direction. But I'd rather see them go to prison, because a gay kid or not, the prison code, they don't like child killers there. So I think they deserve to live the rest of their life with that, and so let's hope that anybody that might listen to this that's in that prison they go to, y'all know what to do.
Well, one thing I wanted to kind of touch on, just kind of related to all this, is obviously we're in the South, which is where all kinds of that stuff tends to happen more often, and people are more homophobic, and there's
racist,
a lot of Trump
sexist.
lovers. Right? This is a red state.
Oh yeah. I'm aware.
What do you want people to take away from your shows? Just kind of.
Well, I want them to know that they've been voting Republican for a long, long time, and look at your state, and look at the quality of life you have, and look at and how they trick you into falling into these cultural traps. Guns, gods, gays, the liberals.
We just had a election just this past November for governor and all of that. So that was extremely talked about in the past couple months.
Right.
Pretty much this past year.
Yeah.
And all of that. And it's pretty much been a argument of who is the Trumpiest of all the candidates is going to be the winner. Like that's.
Well, once Trump goes, once Trump's indicted, then I think those people might start changing their tunes and start erasing tweets and alliances that they've had with Trump. Sean Hannity did that after Michael Cohen, who was Trump's lawyer, is now going to prison for 3 years for what he did on behalf of Trump, and basically Trump is a unindicted co-conspirator in that. We have a man that's in the White House right now that has committed treason. He has committed campaign finance laws violations, obstruction of justice. I mean, he's done everything that you can that a president isn't supposed to do or get away with. And the only reason why he's able to get away with it is because we have a gutless, spineless Republican Party that won't do anything about it. Now that in January, when the Democrats retake the House, they own the judiciary committees. They can subpoena Trump's tax returns and they can get them. So we know why he's licking Putin's boots all the time, why he's licking the Saudis' boots all the time, because he owes them money. If you go back, there's actually you can Google this, everybody. You can Google it. There's a Mad magazine. I don't know if you know what Mad magazine was, but
I do.
funny. It was an old funny magazine, and they used to do parodies and stuff a lot. And it's from like the '90s, and there's this one where Trump's on his knees begging American banks to loan to him, because no American banks would loan to him because he had filed bankruptcy 11 times in 4 years. He was also caught by the U.S. government of laundering Russian mafia money through his failed casino. Who fails a fucking casino? So,
right.
I would say that people. I think there is a new South rising. I think we've seen that in the youth vote. I think we're seeing that a lot. I think that people are ashamed of. Listen, if I may quote the late great James Baldwin, I don't know if you know who James Baldwin was, but James Baldwin was a civil rights activist. He was a writer. He's right up there with Mark Twain. He's a brilliant essayist. He's a brilliant mind. He's African American. He was also a gay man. He knew Martin Luther King. He knew Malcolm X. He knew Medgar Evers. He spoke about, I love my country, and so do I. I love my country. So the fact that I bring up our sins from our past doesn't mean that I hate my country. It's to show how far we've come. Our forefathers were flawed people. They were flawed people. They didn't want to send any money to the King of England anymore. They just wanted to keep it all themselves. But they were slave owners. They didn't give women the right to vote. They massacred Native Americans. Maybe the largest genocide in the history of the world. It's a secret. It's silent. Nobody talks about it. Even now, when we're talking about all the things that go on with the different marginalized groups, Native Americans top that. Nobody talks about those figures either. it's important, I think, for us to remember how far we've come, that we owned people in this country, that women didn't get the right to vote until the 20s, and women stood...
That always blows my mind,
in 1920s, which wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't. This is maybe less than 100 years ago that we've had the right to vote. And this year was the first year that we've actually seen women stand up and really decide to get out and vote and take back what they think America should be. You know, America's an idea. You know, we've come a long way. We're still not at our promised capacity. We still have a long way to go. And the only way to get there is not with muskets and pitchforks and tiki torches like those fucking idiots that marched on those. You know, that's the other thing I don't understand about the South. I don't understand this shit. Everybody's waving Confederate flags. Some people are waving Confederate flags. First of all, that's not the flag of the Confederacy. That's the flag of a particular battalion within the Confederacy. The Confederate flag is a completely different flag. So you're waving the wrong fucking flag. 2, you lost. The United States military kicked the shit out of you. Okay? The third thing is that the only flag you should be able to wave is a white flag of surrender. Because again, the United States military, hoo-ah, kicked the fucking shit out of you motherfuckers. And yes, it was about slavery. Because free labor is great for people who want to get rich. You know, that's why we hate sweatshops and shit. That's why we give Apple so much shit. We give Google so much shit. And we find out that our iPhones or our Samsungs are made in sweatshops in South Korea. Imagine owning people and doing whatever you wanted to. Rape them. You could do whatever you wanted to. That was our forefathers. And women who stood who stood out and wanted to get the right to vote had acid thrown in their faces by the Klan. They were beaten. The rule of thumb. You've ever heard of that old saying, the rule of thumb? That was an actual law. A man could beat his wife with something.
Heard that.
Yeah, with anything that wasn't wider than his thumb. It could be a steel rod. It could be anything. That was a real thing. Women fought and were arrested and beaten for us to be able to get the right to vote. And now we have, in the 21st century, 2018, we have the first 2 Native American women to ever be elected to Congress. And this is their land. And it's the 21st century, and we just now finally got 2 Native American women in Congress. We all should be proud of that. I think that Southern folk who get caught up in this idea of like white culture, I don't know what white culture is. I really don't. Is it khaki pants? Is it golf? Is it trailer parks? I don't know. I don't fucking know what it is.
I always hear like people who think that like nutmeg is too spicy.
Oh, is that what it is? Pumpkin spice lattes? Is that fucking white culture? What we need to do is we need to stop calling ourselves white Americans. And we need to start calling ourselves European Americans or Euro Americans, because that's how we got here. We all came from Europe. You know, my family's Irish. We came over here from Ireland. So we're Irish Americans, right? The idea then would be you don't feel so lost in a country because you don't feel like people who are attached to this idea of white culture. There's no such fucking thing as white culture. There's no such thing. But there is if you're Russian, if your family's Russian, or from Holland, or from England or Ireland or Scotland or wherever. Be proud of that. Look back on your ancestors and find out what great things they did, and be proud of that. And I think that would fill that hole in a lot of people's soul when they feel like that they don't have anybody to be, when they feel inferior for whatever reason. I know Barack Obama made a lot of those racist motherfuckers and feel like they lost superiority. Well, you look back at like when we desegregated schools. And you see those teenagers screaming at those young black kids who were so strong and so brave to enter into those white schools, while eggs are thrown on them and milk's being poured on them and they're being called every fucking horrible name in the book, yet they still marched into that school. Those teenagers, those white teenagers, those Euro-American teenagers, they became somebody. They grew up and became somebody. And I bet you'll find them at every Trump rally. You'll find every one of them. So I think we've got to rediscover our roots as Euro-Americans and celebrate that, and really celebrate that. And we'll find pride in ourselves and in our families and in our lineage instead of trying to latch on. Same thing with these neo-Nazi motherfuckers. I don't understand that at all. First of all, they attack Bernie Sanders for being a socialist. Y'all don't know what Nazi stands for? Nationalist Socialist Party. That's what Nazi stands for. So if you're a neo-Nazi, you're a fucking socialist, you idiots. Second of all, waving that fucking stupid flag, again, the Allies kicked the shit out of you. America's military kicked the shit out of you. The only flag you should be able to wave is a white flag of surrender. You don't like it? Get the fuck out of my country. You don't belong here. And so my hope is that the South starts to realize that they've been duped. They've been bamboozled, hoodwinked. They've had the wool pull over their eyes. You know, a lot of people say, well, why should California get more, say in our government than some of the southern states? Well, I'll tell you why. Do you know what the population of your state is?
I'm not offhand, but it's definitely less than California.
Well, it's definitely less than. I bet it's definitely less than Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Los Angeles alone has 9 million people in it.
Right.
Los Angeles is the 6th largest economy in the world. Just the city of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So our tax dollars help pay for the red states, Mississippi, all those, who have been again voting for the cultural things, the God, guns, the gays that they keep, so that they can raise poor people taxes all across the board, from Euro-Americans to African-Americans to everybody, raise poor people's taxes and lowering rich people's taxes so that they can live off the interest of their money and then they don't have to pay any taxes at all. And that's how it works. That's the trick. So for us, for the South, I think that, if you guys want to have a monument to some fucking traitor that tried to secede from the United States of America, put that in a fucking museum, and you can put traitor across the top of it, whatever you want to do. You guys can go, lick the glass or something or whatever if you want, whatever you want to do. But understand this: the New South is rising. The New South is about equality. I believe the New South is about equality. The New South is about justice, and the New South is tired of being pigeonholed into this idea that they're all, cousin fuckers and Klansmen and all that shit. I think the New South is sick of it. The young folk are sick of it. There's some really, really, really remarkable people that live in these states. And I know they're marginalized because they're a blue dot in a red state, but I think that's growing. We saw that in the last election, how many people came out and voted. And even though liberals lost in some of these red states, we came real close. And also, but we did flip a lot of governors in red states. We flipped a lot of other government positions as well, like mayors and that really matter at local levels. So I think if you come to our show, I hope that what you get out of it is that is to think for yourself, to research for yourself, to not let these people get you fired up on something that doesn't exist. This war on Christmas and all that nonsense. It's just bullshit. They do that to keep you busy. They keep us divided by race or orientation or whatever, so that they can gather up all the treasure and throw crumbs at us. So instead of us fighting for the crumbs, we should be fighting against them, because America is a bottom-up country. We're not a top-down country. That's you lower taxes on the poor and the working class. They spend more money, which makes the economy better. It's happened every single time. Trickle down economics, all that shit's been proven wrong every single time. Every Republican president that's instilled that the deficits exploded. Poor people get poorer. The middle class shrinks, and that's what they want. That's what the resident chump wants. He doesn't want a middle class. Middle class or working class. Working class are strong. Working class can vote. They want a permanent underclass. They want a poverty class. Because poverty, then, you feel helpless. You feel hopeless. I grew up in government housing. My mom was a single mom. She worked 3 jobs. We still had to get food stamps. We still had to get government cheese. We still had to get all that shit. But she worked her ass off to get us up out of there. But I was around people that were sick, who were infirm, who had just given up on life because they had no way out. So, you can't take that away from them or blame them for that when the system itself is designed to keep them there.
So you guys have the newest album, Cult 45.
Cult 45.
I love that, actually.
Thank you.
one thing that I really love is it paints a good picture of like the current political climate. Mm-hmm. It's very, very, this is what's happening now. Mm-hmm. You specifically mentioned Trump. You know, you're mentioning things that happened literally in the past year or so. So like, what do you think, like, how do you think like maybe this album will age? Because like, I know you've had stuff in the past that's, you know, talked about Bush mm-hmm. and it's aged well. Like, do you want people mm-hmm. to like have this album to look back and say, oh, that was a fucked up time and we're better now? Or do you want to like this to be an album that can possibly even be, you know, applied to any situation? Just specifically talking because you name certain
Sure, I think
things.
I think that well,
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm very, very proud of Cult 45, mm-hmm. and Cult 45 is it's about, you know, Resident Chump is the 45th resident of the Oval Office. It's about his cult, mm-hmm. the people that believe everything he says blindly simply because they want to have that bigotry that they have inside of them to fill that hole of inferiority that they have. I'm very proud of this record because me and that big bear over there, Aristotle, we co-produced this record. Mm-hmm. We wanted to make it our own. You know, we didn't want any producers in there going like, well, you guys are going to divide your audience and like have put any doubt in our minds whatsoever on what we were going to write and how we were going to write it and what we were going to say. When I wrote, you brought up Bush. When I wrote Warhead, yep. Because I come from a military family, I always support the troops, still do, completely, 100%. But when you have an idiot president sending our brave men and women to fight, lose their lives, and also murder innocent people over there because he had a thing about his father, I don't know, Saddam Hussein insulted his father, so he was trying to get some revenge or whatever, sent our troops into the wrong country because that's not who attacked us on 9/11. You know, that's what the war was supposed to be about, right? It's about to get Osama bin Laden, the Taliban, and whoever attacked us. Well, it was... I think I can't remember the exact number, but out of there was the largest number of hijackers were Saudis. Mm-hmm. You know, we didn't attack them, right? It's like when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and we went and attacked Guam. I mean, it doesn't make any fucking sense, right? When I first wrote Warhead, I got booed a lot of times in the first time we played it, about 2004. 2005, half booed, half cheered. 2006, everybody cheers. 2018, people are screaming for that song for us to play it. Mm-hmm. Screaming for it. Because, you know, there's speaking of Big Aristotle, who is Greek, his son, he is a son of an immigrant as well. His dad came from Greece, right next to Sparta, little village outside of Sparta. And, you know, when you look at the biggest picture about this record especially and what we're trying to communicate, I think what's going to last, right, is going to be the truth of the matter. Big Aristotle's Greek, so in Greek mythology there's this story about a woman named Cassandra, okay, and she pisses off Apollo for some reason. I can't remember the whole story right now.
From what I remember, that's not hard to do.
Yeah, so exactly. So she pisses off Apollo, and Apollo, then I think he made an advance towards her, and she kind of dismissed her. I don't remember the exact details, but I do know this: he gave her the gift of foresight, which means that she could see into the future. But the curse was no one would believe her. Mm. So a lot of women can relate to that, right? You're like, I told you so. I told you so. I told you this was going to happen. I told you so. So it's called Cassandra disease. It's an actual thing. So I feel like I have that. You know, I was right about Bush. Mm-hmm. I was right about the war. We're still in it. You know, 15, 16 years later. There are children who were born and all they've known is war. They've never, you know, all they ever known was Obama, and now they're freaking out because they don't understand what Trump's doing. Right. But I think that this record will stand the test of time. Warhead was specifically written for George W. Bush, who now isn't the dumbest president we've ever had. Nixon is no longer the most crooked president we've ever had. But songs like Confrontation, which were also written about that time, those songs are written in such a universal way that they still could be played today and applied to these scenarios. So I think we have songs on this record that are the same. I think there are some, like To the Gallows, those songs are specifically about Trump and about how he, liked to get nicterated upon by Russian prostitutes in Moscow. But other songs like Molotov and Said the Snake and Halt Right, even as long, depending on how long these idiots want to stick around and stay. It depends. I don't know. Once Cheeto Schitler's gone, they may recede back into the sewage where they belong. But I think there'll be some songs in this record that'll last the test of time, and I hope they do. And I hope what people get out of this record is, I remember I did an interview with somebody who was an evangelical, and he was very pro-war, and back in the Bush days, and he was surrounded himself by people that only supported Bush and only supported the war. And it wasn't until he heard Warhead that he heard a different perspective, a different aspect. And he said it changed his mind, it changed his way of thinking. So music has that power. Music has the alchemy of music is so powerful that it has the ability to pollinate you with ideas that you might not listen if someone was just sitting here talking to you about it. We might argue. But if you're listening to a song and you're singing along and you're like, oh, wait a minute, hey, wait, that's different. Yeah, that might be right.
It can trigger emotions.
Exactly. And so that's what's the beautiful thing about art. And I always try to tell people this too, art's art to me, right? You go look at a Picasso and it's beautiful. First time I ever saw Picasso and I saw his brushstrokes that were still there, I wept. I love Picasso. Basquiat, same thing. But a Basquiat and a Picasso is going to cost you about $3 million if you're lucky. Music is art. When you have your worst day, you listen to music. You listen to a song that makes you feel better or makes you feel worse or just makes you feel the way you feel, right? You have your best day. A lot of people put on their favorite song, rock out to it, right? Something celebratory. Or if you need a pickup, you go to the gym, you need to rock out to something, you put on a song. You don't go look at a Picasso. You don't go look at a Basquiat. You listen to music. So in order for us to save this particular, tentacle or branch of the tree of art, it's important for people to support it. It's important for people to it's $3 million for Picasso, it's $1.99 for a single, So that's what I ask people to do, because musicians like us and bands like us, we put everything on the line. It's not easy to stand up there and say the things that I say. A lot of other bands don't do that. They're too afraid to polarize their audiences or whatever. I'm not. I haven't been. This is going on 16 years, almost half my life doing this. I ain't changing. When I finally leave this planet, I want to have my integrity intact. I want to have my authenticity intact, and I want to be able to say that I did the right thing according to what I believe is right and just, and fight for people that were like me that needed a voice when they didn't have one.
And I think you've had a very loud voice too,
yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Just to kind of wrap up, I
Sure.
just want to say, obviously it's a couple weeks till Christmas. Do you guys have any big plans, like for the rest of the tour? Like what's coming up next for you guys?
Well, we get home Christmas Eve, so yeah. So
Merry Christmas. I'm home.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think that shows. I hope that shows devotion to our fans. That the entire crew band all agreed to come out and spend the holidays on the road, because we believe in the music, we believe in this record, and we believe and we love to play for our fans. But I guess we're going to go home and take a break. We've been playing since we left. We've been playing 6-7 nights a week, every week, one day off, and then so I think we're going to go home, relax, have fun with our families and loved ones, and then we're going to Europe, I think, in February. So it's our first time to play Europe since 2002.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of idiot managers in the past and stupid labels who didn't think Europe was important, so they never made a big push for us.
I'm sure they'll welcome you back with open
arms. The response we're getting right now is insane. So we're going to do that in February, and then hopefully we'll be maybe hitting South America in the summer, and then we'll do another headlining run sometime. And then, I don't know, maybe we get back in the studio and start writing another record.
Sweet.
See what happens next year.
Maybe things will be completely. You'll have something new to.
You know what? I would love to. You know, I mean, honestly, it's I think it's my duty. You know, Nina Simone said it the best. She said, you know, it's an artist's duty to reflect their surroundings and what's going on in the country at the time. But also, you know, I'd much rather write something else than about, you know, this hideous, bloated colostomy bag, Donald Trump. I'd rather write, you know, about other things. I mean, there's always injustice in the world. And there's always things to write about that's fun as well, you know. I mean, we got a song on this record called Boss.
I love that one.
Thank you very much.
I love
it's
that
about,
one.
you know, we don't have to genderize everything. Yeah. You're not a boss bitch. You're just a boss bitch. And, you know, and then we have a song called Be Brave, which Aristotle and I wrote, which is probably the closest thing to Perfectly Flawed that we've ever had since Perfectly Flawed. And it's about stepping out of your comfort zone and living your own life and never let anybody dictating to you who you should be or what your goals should be or what your dreams should be. And, you know, it's tough sometimes. It's scary. You know, being fearless isn't always about, doesn't mean, to me, it doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do it anyway. That's what it means. So that's why that song I think is so important. And so there's, you know, there's some other great things. There's always things to write about. I just want to get past this chapter in our history, forget about this fool, and move on. You know.
Hopefully that happens soon.
I hope so. January, baby. It all starts.